Hello, I'm Chris Johnson, owner of Living Waters Fly Fishing in Round Rock, Texas, and GRTU VP of Membership. Thanks for watching GRTU's fly tying video series. Today we're going to tie a fly that's actually been made popular by our VP of Fisheries, Jimbo Roberts. He uses this fly for just about everything, and if you've read any of his reports when he goes fishing, he attributes a lot of his trout in the Guadalupe River to this fly. And it's our version, or Jimbo's version, of Dave's Red Squirrel Nymph. This fly can be used for bass, sunfish, trout. We've literally caught just about everything on it. Hope you enjoy watching and enjoy tying a few of these for your own box. To start out, we're simply going to get the thread started. I typically lay a small thread base on the hook here. This is a 70 Denier, either like a rust brown, you can use a plain brown, whichever you prefer. We're going to go ahead and start out by adding some squirrel tail. And I'm going to go ahead and stack a bunch in a stacker here, so we'll pull it out to where the tips are fairly close to aligned. I know the actual traditional pattern is tied with squirrel body hair in many instances. I just really like the red hue that this tail gives this fly, so I really like that red color here on this. So I'm going to thin this out. I'm going to simply take this and tie it in. And you can see about the length that I have on that. I'm going to actually wrap down the hook shank, and this is a Gamakatsu B10S for the hook with a 7/64 bead. I want just a nice little squirrel tail there. I'm going to wrap this into the bend just a little bit so I get a little bit of kind of a curved body profile. I really like that. But you actually are going to go ahead and wind all the way up here, trying to keep that squirrel kind of right on top, and kind of pick a point where you're going to transition from your abdomen to the thorax of the fly. Once you've done that, all we're going to do here is come in here and trim that nice and close. Tie down any of those little loose ends. And what we've done is that's going to help us not have to use so much dubbing in a later step. We're going to go ahead and add some rubber legs. And this is what really separates this fly from, in my opinion, from even just the traditional versions, is how much it has going on. So there's a lot of steps to this fly, but it really does a great job in the water. So we're going to take these two, just a rubber leg, and double it over to make a loop. And we're simply going to tie two legs out the back side of the fly. So same thing, holding them under tension. I do this to where then those legs split off the back side of the fly. These legs are actually, it's called a Grizzly pumpkin or Grizzly root beer. Or barred pumpkin. It gets marketed as a lot of different things, but this color of legs is the one that I really prefer for this fly, and this is in the nymph or micro size depending on what brand you're buying. So we're just going to cut that little loop out of the edge there. Final step before we go on to the dubbing is to tie in a small French tinsel in gold. So you can use just a small mylar tinsel, you can do this with a flash tinsel, but we just traditionally use this small French tinsel. Next step in the fly is to actually dub the fly. And so this is, the dubbing color actually is produced by Wapsi, and it's called Dave's Squirrel Nymph Abdomen. So it is actually made for this fly. The trick here is to kind of make a little fluffy rope with this dubbing, and I think you can probably see that on camera, that as we wrap this around, you'll see that it just makes this nice, kind of small, fuzzy body here. And we're obviously going to need more here to travel all the way up, but just so you can see how that looks on the hook here. That's kind of what we're after, is just that nice, kind of thin, fuzzy body. The number one problem when people actually dub flies is that they use too much. So take what you need, cut it in half, and cut it in half again, and you're probably just about right for the amount. I mean, a wisp of dubbing looks like this. So I mean, it's just super, super thin, so that when we add it to this, it just makes that little fluffy rope that we're after. And here we'll just finish the dubbing amount on the fly. And right about there is where we're going to transition from our abdomen to our thorax. Very next step is we're simply going to wind this tinsel, just almost like a stripe on a candy cane. Just spiral that forward, one wrap in front of the other, head it all the way up, and we want to completely rib that abdomen. Make a couple wraps right there in the blank space. Simply take your thread, cross over that to tie it down, make a few securing wraps headed back towards the abdomen of the fly. Now you'll see we can trim this, and we have a very established space left for the rest and final portions of the fly. The very next thing we are going to do is add a soft hackle just in between the thorax and the abdomen. So I'm going to pull out a Brahma hen saddle here. Here I just want something that is kind of loose and sticks up about that much. So just a typical feather size out of a soft hackle is going to look like that. So the actual feather tip isn't just a whole lot bigger than the fly itself. I'm going to take the fuzzy fluffy part of this, kind of the downy portion of the feather. I'm going to leave just the slightest bit of that on there, but I'm going to pull the rest of it off. You can tie these in tip in or base in. For here, I want that downy in the rear portion of this, so I'm going to go ahead and tie this in stem first. Give a little tug on the feather, make sure that it's not going to pull out. Simply take the stem after you've secured it in and tie that down. I get my thread forward just a little bit, just to leave me some wrap room here. And tying in any sort of soft hackle, this is kind of the process. We're going to take our hackle pliers, simply clamp the feather right on the stem, and we're going to wind that feather, not quite one right over the other, but just forward a little bit. So we're going to kind of transition each wrap a little bit forward, and then I'm going to stroke all those loose fibers backwards. When you get to the very end, simply take your thread, pull the tip of this feather forward, cross that through, and then here you can either trim the tip out, pull it out, or even break it off if you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and trim. The tip is trimmed out, and we're going to simply stroke all of those feathers backwards. And what that's going to allow us to do now is take our thread and wrap backwards on all of those headed towards the rear of the fly. It's going to make this really nice soft hackle collar. And we're just trying to entrap as many of those as we can. And now we have this perfect little soft hackle collar on this fly. So it just looks super buggy, which is everything we're after here. It's just a real nice, buggy looking fly as a whole. Final steps to this fly, we're going to add a couple more legs, and we're also going to add more dubbing. Just a little trick, just to make sure that you get the legs the way you want them. I go ahead and place some dubbing on this hook before I actually tie the legs in. Some people tie the legs in immediately thereafter. I find that the legs tend to spin a little bit because they're trying to clamp to kind of a finer surface. I want to put my legs right in the middle of that thorax. So here, kind of the same process we had as before. We're going to take one of those Grizzly micro legs, lay it on top here. I'm going to cross over with the thread once. That will allow me to pull my legs off to either side to position them. We should have one leg off to each side, and you see the kind of that loop poking out the front. You can cut that. And that's going to make that great little X wrap that we're after on rubber legs on a nymph. So if you can see that, the legs kind of come off the thorax in kind of an X style pattern. Here to finish the fly, we're just going to take this and dub the thorax and make it super buggy. So just make a nice little fluffy rope of dubbing. I'm going to add a little bit more here. And this can even be a little bit loose because we can brush it out and tease it out, do whatever we need to. I just don't want to make it too much to where we can't finish the fly off. I'm simply going to kind of cross in between those legs. And if I have too much dubbing, I can simply remove it. At that step there, I'm simply going to take it and now pull the dubbing forward, finish that off right behind the bead. Now I've got a really great thorax on this fly. I really like the way that looks. Simply take this, and at this point, take your whip finisher, pull all those legs and stuff back, slide that little whip finisher right in there behind that bead. Whip finish. Hit it again, and trim it. Once you've done that, you simply now kind of pull the legs, make sure they're all in position the way you want. I'm going to trim this tail a little bit shorter. I don't like a real long tail on this fly. And then I want my legs, so make sure that those kind of even up, get the length that you want. That is a finished Dave's Red Squirrel Nymph, kind of in the Jimbo special arrangement. So we use this fly for sunfish, for bass, for trout. It's a top producer for us almost everywhere we go in western tailwaters and even freestone streams. Makes a great stonefly imitation, and tied all the way down to like a 16, it can even make a great small mayfly imitation, like for March Browns and things like that, kind of those transitional stages in like 10s, 12s, and 14s. So hope you enjoy this. It's going to catch you a lot of fish, that much I can guarantee. Have a great time tying these at your vise and fill a box.